Welcome back to Open Up with Don and Tina.
You bet. Listen, we're talking, if you just tuned in, to Malvina Laudicina, originally from the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
and comes here and rises to a very high level in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes.
And then God just calls her to some incredibly different thing. And we're talking now about, we at the break, diving. You were called by the Spirit to dive into the Word. What does that mean for you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, part of my illness, I was very limited on what I could do. I really couldn't go anywhere. I hurt all over and have limited motion in my head, in my arms. So I would sit there for hours. And the presence of the Lord he trapped me. He really took, created like a chamber, and he would take over me. And I would just devour the Word. So in that period of time, it was a supernatural studying.
If I may, there was a quick parenthesis, but Robert Louis Stevenson, the great American author, once was very sick, and a friend came to him and he said, "Perhaps the Lord is using this illness to take you aside so that he might whisper in your ear things that you might not otherwise hear." Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, absolutely. And the Lord did not cause my disease. My disobedience and rebellion brought me to that illness.
Right.
But he allowed it because he knew it was the only way he and I could have come into my chamber, and I'm going to whisper words of love to you.
Yes.
And he just, the words open up to me. In the upbringing that I had, we didn't spend a lot of time reading the Bible. We knew religion, we did a lot of rituals, but not necessarily an encounter.
Yeah.
And as part of that is where the paintings came from. He will give me this very strong, as I would read the Word, the Word will come alive in my mind. And then I don't have an art degree. I don't know how to draw or paint. So I would attempt to do stick figures in my journal just to capture what I was seeing. So there are many of these paintings, and they all have profound revelation behind them. But there will be a moment in where I could feel the Spirit come up, and it's time to paint. And at that moment, supernaturally, I'll be able to sketch things that I couldn't do otherwise. So if you ask me to paint them today, I can't, unless the Lord instructs me. Sometimes it takes a long time because he refines them. The more he reveals, new elements to the paintings. And he tricked me. He asked me to do watercolors because it's harder to control. Because in acrylic, you can always fix, or oils, you can always cover. But in watercolor, it goes all over the paper, and that's it. There's no bringing it back. So it allowed me to be free in the spirit. And that's where some of the paintings came from. So it was a huge experience of knowing, I define it as the knowledge of God, the knowledge of the glory of God for me specifically. Was that period. And for me to get well, I had to get away from doctors and say, I'm not going to take the medication anymore. I'm just going to let God deal with me. If I perish, I perish.
Yeah.
And 7 years later, I can say I was restored. It was very progressive. So it was not the miracle that I wanted. But right now, I wouldn't trade it for anything because what I learned of him is so amazing. He became so real to me. And to me, I wouldn't do anything unless he tells me. And that is the theme of my life.
And how does he tell you?
Okay, so again, I'm a dreamer. And I'm really stubborn. So he knows he needs to bypass my logic. Okay, so I'm not one that I'm going to hear the audible voice of God. Oh, do this. No, that I talk too much. I'm too high energy. I'm go all the time. So it's unlikely that I'm going to hear a prompting like that. So he knows he can grab me in the intimacy of my bed at night and grabs me, and my dreams are amazing. I love it. I told him, I give you my nights. Now, that didn't come without opposition from the enemy, because I would get really intense dreams of opposition, warfare, places where the enemy wanted to grab me, distorted understandings that I had because of my past in occult and New Age. So that's another reason why I think the Lord has used the dreams for me, because in New Age, you manipulate your mind. You really go for your trying to reach a higher level with your meditation, with your mind. So I was always fearful, am I making this up or is this really God? So the dreams became a way in which God spoke directly to me. And to this day, he gives me clear instructions on you will be there and we will do this and there'll be angels and so he will reveal step by steps. So that's how I transition into the dream world. And interesting enough, he has brought so many people that end up in trouble because of their dreams or visions. A lot of people get very oppressed because they have nightmares. They dream terrors of the night, where, oh my goodness, somebody's going to cut my head, for example, and they wake up and they're all flustered. And those dreams can really impact you in a negative way if you don't understand why you're getting them. So people started coming to me for help. I don't know, supernaturally. I think the Lord was shaping my ministry. And especially younger people, because I do think the younger generation has been, they have an anointing that our generation didn't have. We were more comfortable with church. I live very close to Hollywood. There is a large generation of very creative people that they can really dream and have experiences and visions, and they don't know what to do with that. And sometimes they can be tormented by it. So I've come to realize, okay, Lord, you're going to have to give me wisdom to help them.
Yes.
And it's fascinating what God can do when someone gets clarity on their dream. There is such freedom that comes from it.
Do you have a dream? Do you like her to interpret?
Oh, it's a silly dream.
There are no silly dreams.
Well, it's the one like you had of flying.
Oh, yes.
And it was when I was a boy, and I was able to it was when I was alone, and I could run and leap.
Yes.
And with great effort, I could make it about as high as the telephone wires. And it was like swimming through the air. It was very hard. It was very laborious. And then I'd run, and I'd gather all my little pals, and I'd say, come, watch. And I'd run, and I'd leap, and I'd go splat, and they'd all say, ha, they'd all laugh, and then they'd all turn, and I'd walk behind them with my head down, feeling so ashamed and so embarrassed. And this just went on, and finally there came a time when I was just soaring.
Yes.
And sweeping and swooping. And they were all down on the ground looking up like that. But it didn't matter to me that they were looking up or not looking up. I was just this joy of just soaring and sweeping and flying. That was the dream. And then the dream stopped. I never had it again.
Oh, that's a fascinating dream.
Talk about it.
Yes. So flying in dreams has to do with going to higher levels spiritually. Okay. So, and it's a very common dream. As you can ask a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot, I've had flying dreams. I used to fly, I live in San Diego. I used to fly all over San Diego. And it means that you're going to see from a higher level. When you're higher, you can see down. You can look down. So that is a way of God saying, I'm going to take you, and I'm sure he did, take you to higher levels. And at first it's going to be difficult. And if you look at it, you were going above telephone wires. What is a telephone? A telephone is a communication device, So God's saying, you got to come up higher so you can hear me, okay? But it got kind of dense. It was difficult at first. But then the Lord reveals to you, there's going to come a point in your life that you're going to soar above. And you're really not going to care what anybody says. And you will go to higher levels with the Lord. And he's the one who's going to take you. You're not going to be able to do it yourself. He'll do it.
I'll buy that.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, wow. Okay. So with all this, it's so many dreams. You know, I'm a dreamer. I love dreaming. I love Psalm 16, verse 7. Says,
yeah.
I will
He
bless the Lord
instructs
who has given me counsel. My reins or my heart shall instruct me in the night season. So I love it when he visits me in the night seasons. And that's probably why Pamela, by the way, thank you, Pamela Stein, for introducing Malvina to us. Malvina, tell us, you are a jewelry maker,
Yes.
and that's by the Spirit. Tell us about that, would you?
Yes, again, I do connect the gifting that I'm referring to of hearing from God as a prophetic gift. Now,
Yes.
each person has a unique way of hearing. Not everybody hears the same way, which I think is one of the myths. You know, everybody
Yeah.
wants to get this. Okay, I call it my wigs.
Yes.
What is God saying? Well, put
Wigs.
your wigs on, because
I love it.
you ask people, what is God saying? And most people can't answer, or they doubt. I'm not sure. I have to make a decision, but I'm not sure what's happening. So we need to if we're going to do God's will, we should be very clear. It should be very basic,
Yes,
I think.
yes.
And God wants us to hear him more than we want to hear him. So it should be very basic. But I think we misunderstand what hearing from God really is. So I believe that we need more of the wisdom of God.
Yes.
And the wisdom of God is very much connected with creativity. Now, you don't have to be an artist to be creative. You can be a cook. You can cook and make new recipes. I don't know. Just release something in the way we get inspired. If we allow the Spirit to be the source of inspiration, then you're releasing the wisdom of God. And that will give you insights in areas that you normally wouldn't have. To me, I define wisdom as a supernatural ability to do what God has called me to do. You know, that's wisdom. And in the Bible, you see many, many characters that are very creative. Solomon, he built the temple, and it was people came, non-believers came to see it, how beautiful it was. You know, the people who built the tabernacles, the tabernacle in the wilderness, also had the spirit of wisdom when they were going to create the pieces. So that to me is a way of hearing God. If we tap into that spirit of wisdom, and sometimes it needs to be released through creativity. So I do a lot of creative camps or creative workshops, because if people get in tune, you don't have to be an artist. Just play with the paint. Become a child again. Sometimes that releases your mind. You're not in that left brain.
Become a child again.
Yes. And releases. So I do make the jewelry that way as well.
Okay, let's camp there for a minute until we take a break. We'll be back and hear more from Malvina Laudicina.
Wow.